It is time for me to talk about the Memphis Grizzlies. Last time they came up in conversation, I mentioned I need to see them play against a few more good teams before I made this big video about them. Well, that big video is happening right now because last night they went against the Golden State Warriors and won by 51. I know I have a tendency to be hyperbolic on this channel, specifically with numbers. I am not exact. They won by 51 points. And at one point, that lead was as big as 57. Now, obviously, the Warriors are not this super duper star team. This is not a team that anybody's considering a contender, but it is still a good team. And they straight up embarrassed them on a day that was supposed to be sunshine and roses for the Warriors. Dennis Schroeder's first game, baby, 51 points. Now, before the season started, the Grizzlies were one of those teams that I had in a tough to predict tier. Because obviously I recognize the talent that was Jaren Jackson, Desmond Bane, and Ja Morant. But last time we saw them be good, a lot of things about their team has shifted. Dudes like Dylan Brooks or Steven Adams, who were a big part of their identity defensively and offensive rebounding, were gone. So one of the reasons why they were difficult to predict for me, because I didn't know if this was going to be a season where they stayed with that identity, even if some of their personnel has shifted, or would this be a year where they're trying to figure out who they really are since they have changed a little bit. And now what we are 30% way through the NBA season. And honestly, that identity that they had 2 years ago when they were really good, it's still the same. This is one of the best offensive rebounding teams in the NBA, causing extra possessions. They are still the fastest team in the NBA, just like any Ja Morant-led team. But they've been able to do it, keeping the identity just different than what they did a couple years back. So my question to you, and I guess the question I'm going to be thinking about over the next couple weeks and throughout the course of this video, is where do they lie in the grand scheme of the NBA? Right? In my personal opinion, I think let's talk about the Western Conference, right? Winning the Western Conference. There are two teams at the top. It is OKC and the Dallas Mavericks. Well, the Memphis Grizzlies have a better record than the Dallas Mavericks. Not saying that means a ton, but we always talk about the recipe, the recipe, the recipe. What is the recipe to be considered a title contender and a title winner? A lot of the times it is top 10 in offense and defense. And more specifically, if you really want to get it going, it's top 5 in both. Where this team right here that I'm highlighting that is 5th in offense and 4th in defense, that is your Memphis Grizzlies. And this right here, win differential, this is what's the difference between the number of games the team has won and what would be expected based on the efficiency differential. They're 29th, which means that right now, based on this 5th in offense and 4th in defense, their record is 3 wins worse than what it should be. So that means this Memphis Grizzlies team that is number 2 in the Eastern Conference with the 4th best point differential in all of basketball is somehow better than what their record shows. So it's like, top 5 offense, top 4 defense, that is all the recipe to win, right? But in my mind, again, at the top of this Western Conference, it is the OKC Thunder and the Dallas Mavericks. And I guess I would say as of today, the Grizzlies, are they 3rd? Because you think about some of the other contenders here. You talk about Houston. I think Houston's just a little bit too early on. The one thing Memphis has over Houston is they've been in a few playoff series with their current core, so they have some experience there. Minnesota Timberwolves, Lord knows what the hell is going on over there. Same thing with the Denver Nuggets. So I think it's pretty easy to say that the Grizzlies should be top 3 Western Conference contender. And it may be hard to stomach for some people because on paper, it doesn't look like a team that should be a contender. When you're watching, again, this is a 1-game thing, right? At the end of this first quarter, the score was 37-15. And the NBA, it fluctuates so much. We've seen a team be down by 30 or 20 in the first quarter and come back to win the goddamn game. So it doesn't mean a ton that the Warriors were down by this much. But when we loaded into this game, one thing that completely stood out in this first quarter is this little old rookie over here that is face guarding Wardell Stephen Curry and not allowing him. That man, Jalen Wells, is Steph Curry's shadow. And the how impressed I am with him this season is incredible. He has been my favorite rookie that is not named Modest Buzelis. I said that 4 weeks ago, it feels like, and he continues to impress. Like, please look at this. Please look at this. This is a score from him. Bang out. And guess what? No. Where are you going, 30? Where are you going? No, you're not going anywhere. And Steph Curry just had his worst game of his NBA career. Not saying that is all Jalen Wells, but like for a rookie to take this dominant offensive system, and that's what Steph Curry is, the greatest shooter to ever touch a basketball, and say, hey, you're not scoring a bucket, is crazy to me. And one of the few times they were able to clear up Steph Curry, guess what? It was a patent Draymond Green screen, which means that it was an offensive foul. The way he guarded Steph Curry in this one reminds me of like when you watch 4-year-olds play basketball and you tell a 4-year-old you got to guard them, and that's all they do. They don't care about help defense. They don't care about that because they don't know no better. Where they're like this and guarding the person, hugging the person. That is what Jalen Wells just did to Steph Curry in this game. And last thing on this rookie, the very last thing on the rookie, even though I think we can talk about him for quite some time in this video if we really wanted to, one thing that I thought was pretty interesting is that he always kept his body between the ball and Steph Curry. Not a lot of people are able to do that for a full game stretch, but he really did. You see, he does not care about where or looking at the ball. You know, you play defense, you got to keep your man on your eyes on your man and the ball. You're fluctuating, torso this, torso that. No. I am watching Steph Curry like a hawk, and I know to get between him and the ball at all times. And sometimes you see him shift his body it was great. That's all I got to say. It was really great. I think there are a lot of teams in basketball that should be and could be taking a page out of the Memphis Grizzlies book. Last year, the Grizzlies were 27-55. They had the most players in NBA history suit up for them. Well, I'm not even going to count it. Look how many people suited up for them. And that's insane, right? But what that was for them as they waited for Ja Morant to get back from his suspension and eventually get back from his injury, while they waited for the newly acquired Marcus Smart to get healthy, while they waited for this and that, one thing that they did is not let this season be a wasted year. And I feel like there are a couple teams across basketball that are also dealing with the injury bug, cough, 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 Philadelphia, cough, 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 New Orleans Pelicans, that might have their season lost. The Grizzlies did what they could in developing during the season that was a really, really bad year. Jaren Jackson Jr., this is last year's statistics. He averaged 22 points per game. The efficiency wasn't nothing to write home about, but one thing when you watched him, he got so many opportunities as the ball handler in a pick and roll, as a short roller. We basically got to see Jaren Jackson Jr. experiment with his offensive game for 66 games. For 66 games. Vince Williams Jr. has not played yet in this NBA season, but he was a revelation for them, attempting 4 3-pointers a game and shooting 38% from that and defending very well. Santi Aldama started half of the season and he ended up averaging 10 points per game and shot it very well. Gigi Jackson, 19 years old. Scottie Pippen Jr. was on his previous team and couldn't get tick. He comes to the Grizzlies, averaged 25 minutes per game and averages 13 points. They used this lost season to try out 33 different people and figure out which of these guys do we think we can help develop and keep around. And they also made tough sacrifices. Zaire Williams, they found out just not a part of our future. Yes, we wish that we would have got Josh Giddey there, because I don't know if y'all remember, they wanted Josh Giddey. He was at the 10th overall pick. They didn't get him, and they went with Zaire Williams instead. And he didn't work out. They shifted him away. Okay, now we're going to focus on Jake LaRavia, who this season, Jake LaRavia, Santi Aldama, all of these dudes are just playing so great. So though this season was their worst year in the last 7 years, whatever the stat was, they didn't let it be wasteful. And there are certain teams in basketball that I believe are letting these injury-riddled seasons be a waste because they're not finding that talent that they can help develop. And sometimes I wonder, what is this development from the Grizzlies? Is it luck that they have? Oh, it can't be luck because they do it so often. But is it development? Is it their scouting to figure out, hey, Santi Aldama / Jake LaRavia / hell, I wouldn't be surprised if the Spencer kid ends up being one of these dudes. These guys, we trust that they trust the process of becoming a better basketball player. And I want to take a step back and talk about Jaren Jackson Jr. again. Again, we don't never have scripts around here. I just kind of ramble about the stuff that comes to mind. Jaren Jackson Jr. using that 66 games to get better offensively is extremely important, right? One thing that wavered last season was his defense, which makes sense. The team wasn't playing for anything. He has more of an offensive load, and he went from a guy that won the DPOY to not get a single all-defensive vote. That's kind of a crazy fall off. Now he's back to doing the stuff that we saw him do 2 to 3 years ago. And one thing that is quite significant, if you've been watching, is that he's able, or I guess he's rounded out his defensive game even more. How about that? At his peak of his powers, when he was a defensive player of the year, he was averaging 3 blocks per game. He was one of the best roaming defensive players, help defenders in all of basketball, and that is how he ends up winning that award. Nowadays, he's only blocking 1.7 shots. So what has shifted? Where he is so much more comfortable this season playing different roles defensively. Yeah, he can be that roamer, help defender for an entire game. If you need him to be the sole 5-man on the court, he can do that as well. You can bring putting him at the point of attack on defense when they're running a pick and roll, and he's holding his own all over the court right now. Like, I think his season has gone extremely underrated as he is averaging 22 points per game. He's shooting 52% from the field. He's always been a streaky three-point shooter. This year's about 66%. His rebound numbers are always super funny to me. But nonetheless, I think that his season is extremely underrated where, like, if you've been really tuned in, him being an all-star this season is like not even a question. He should be an all-star lock at this moment in time. But I'm looking at it like, can I convince myself that, again, based on this nearly 30-game sample size, can I convince myself that Jaren Jackson Jr. deserves to have an all-NBA case? And I think you could. I don't know if he would make it, but I think you can make that case that he's been one of the 15 best players in the league this season. I think I said earlier that Vince Williams didn't play yet. He did play the last, 2 to 3 games. He did play in this game. But again, I am so very amazed by everything they've been doing so far. And I'm excited to see them keep it up. You know, they got a tough-ish run coming up. Like, okay, so they got tomorrow they got the Hawks, they got the Clippers, they got the Raptors, and then the Pelicans, okay? But then right here started the December 29th, oh my God. They got the Thunder, they got the Suns, they got the Kings, they got the Warriors again, they got the Mavericks, the Rockets, the Wolves, the Rockets, like they are about to go on this gauntlet for basically the entirety of January. So we'll see how they fare there. But I want to tip my hat and get my flowers to the Grizzlies. You let me know where you have them in your hierarchy of the NBA.